is the coronavirus the beginning of a global crisis? Now, unless you've just arrived on planet Earth from a whole different galaxy, then there's no doubt that you are aware of the current global crisis the world is facing. The coronavirus pandemic, the highly contagious virus that is bringing cities, countries, continents, and even the whole world to a standstill. Now, a little over a year ago, I made a video about there being a big crash that will be coming to hit and break the world. And after doing a bit of research, I can see how this situation right here that the world is facing is potentially the last domino to fall as we enter a global economic crisis. Now, if you've watched any of my content on this channel, you would know that I don't really like things such as media, news, and even things like social media, as I kind of feel that the media's main goal is just to constantly put people in a state of anxiety and fear, as that's how they make profit for themselves. So I've never really been the one to sit down and watch the news day in, day out. That's why up until a few weeks ago, I was aware of some sort of virus that started in China and heard rumours that it was slowly spreading across the world, but I didn't really think anything more of it until me and 11 of my mates were all jetting off for a week's holiday in Mexico. That was booked in a whole year in advance. Now, I usually just like travelling by myself and I like sorting my own flights etc out, but it was ages since I've been on a lad's holiday, so I thought, why not? Why not jet out with the lads and go and enjoy myself? But little did I know that we was about to go on a whole adventure before the holiday even started. Just a few hours before our flight was set to depart, we were all struck with some crazy news that made us all nervous wrecks. The airline known as Flybe had all of a sudden gone tits up and went bust. Now, this led all 12 of us to have nervous breakdowns while we're sitting in a bar, as we had to make it to Mexico that day. Otherwise, all 12 of us lads would lose all our money that we spent booking the whole holiday. Now, to cut a very long story short, after hours of desperately trying to find and book 12 lads on brand new flights and a change in airport, we all finally made it safely onto a new flight. Now, just before we were set to take off, I did a quick Google search to see what the hell went on with the airline Flybe. And why did it all of a sudden go bust? And after doing some fast track research before I had to lock off my phone, I saw that Flybe CEO mentioned that the coronavirus had a massive impact on bringing the whole airline down. And at that time, bearing in mind that I was half drunk and half sleep deprived, I couldn't see how the hell a virus all the way out in China could somehow bring down a whole airline that has been operating for over 40 years. I knew that as soon as I was done with my well-earned break, I'd be coming back and researching the hell out of what the coronavirus is and what impact it potentially is going to have on the world. And now that I'm back and refreshed, that is exactly what I have done. But little did I know that I would be opening Pandora's box on this whole situation, and it may have led me to discover that this may be the start of the global economic crisis that has been well overdue. Now, as you all know, this is an entrepreneurship channel. The things that I cover are going to be in relevance to how us entrepreneurs can use certain information to get ahead in the business world, and as well in our personal lives. I'm not really going to cover the in-depth science of the virus or any crazy controversial ideas surrounding the virus, as I'm not really qualified to do so. But what I am going to cover is the effect that this virus will have on the world in terms of businesses and economies, and how people like you and me can prepare for it and how to even profit from it. Now, if you like this type of content and you want me to make a series based around it as more things develop, like I do with other pieces of content on my channel, then make sure you subscribe and leave a like, so I know to continue creating more content like this that you can gain golden knowledge from. Now, to start off, I think it's best if we take a bit of a historical outlook on the virus itself and a few basic facts about it. So the coronavirus disease, also known as COVID-19, was first reported in December of 2019. The virus that causes COVID-19 is a novel coronavirus that was first identified during an investigation into an outbreak in a region known as Wuhan in China. Ever since then, the outbreak has exploded all across China. And on the 13th of January 2020, the first case out of China was confirmed to be in Thailand. And ever since then, we have seen the rapid spread of it across the world. Most likely because of the way the world is now so interconnected. I mean, there's been reports of people that don't have any symptoms at all, but are what is known as carriers. People who have the virus who are not affected by it, but still can infect other people. Now, at the time of preparing this video, the news has been developing so fast that it's been hard to keep up with. And as of just last week, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, announced all schools to be closed, all bars, all clubs, all restaurants and all places of gatherings to be closed. So it looks like in the UK we are also following a lockdown similar to Italy, Spain and France. Now, I've been bombarded with questions about what I think is going to happen and what I think about all this, and the truth of the matter is I'm not really worried. Yes, granted, this is something our generation has never seen before, and it does appear like we're in the middle of a Black Mirror episode, but the way I see it, it's not in our control, and I personally think all the governments worldwide are handling it as best as they can, and I'm confident within a few months this will all soon pass. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the workers of the NHS and other public servants, as it's clear to see that they are the backbone that society relies on in times of crisis. Now, even though I'm not too crazily worried about it, please don't think that this is a joke either. I'm seeing a lot of young people still active and not following the guidelines of social distancing set out by the government. Yes, as we all know, if we look at the data, the virus has shown that it is very unlikely to cause real health concerns and deaths to young people at this moment in time. But the point I'm highlighting is the risk that we're potentially exposing to much more vulnerable people, especially the elderly. Again, back to the concept of carriers. You may be fine, but you could potentially pass it on to someone's grandmother or grandfather, someone's loved and cared one. So what my advice is to people is to listen what the government is saying. Wash your hands and keep on top of hygiene. Keep stocked essentials in your house, but don't be a fucking dick either about it and buy 30 bottles of hand wash when you clearly don't need that much. If you have symptoms, self-isolate yourself and stay up to date by using your government and public health websites, such as the NHS here in England. Now, you may be thinking, Aaron, if you're not really worried about it, then why are you bothering to make a whole video about it? And I can see how you would potentially think that. But the reason behind why I'm making this video is not because I'm worried about the coronavirus itself, because I'm confident that it will soon pass. But as I was watching the news and seeing things such as stock markets having the biggest dump since 1987, central banks slashing interest rates to nearly zero, and massive businesses collapsing, this is what really shakes me to the core and makes me think if people stop worrying all about the coronavirus itself, and if they had a look on what's going on behind the scenes, then this is what should really make them shit themselves. As with everything that is going on, the virus will most likely pass in a couple of months. The economic collapse it may cause, however, and the consequences of it will cause people to feel the shockwaves for many years to come. This is what the media should be highlighting, the fact that we are literally entering the first stage of a worldwide recession. And like with any other crash, we're going to see money dry up, businesses shut down, jobs being lost, and unemployment levels increase. And my strong opinion is that people are going to be 10 times more affected by the recession than the actual virus itself. Now, the thing is, the world was already in a high state of uncertainty prior to the coronavirus outbreak. I mean, with Trump and Brexit and trade wars between US and China, oil wars between Saudi Arabia and Russia, high tensions between US and Iran, and not to even mention the thought of a global economic crisis that has been lingering around for the past few years. We've seen many world leaders stating that the economy is the best it's ever been, which is actually true. It's never been better. But what I also feel is that the world leaders and the media have also done an injustice to people, as they have not bothered to alert the general public that a worldwide recession is also imminent. But you could also say that it's not the government's responsibility to educate you about that in the first place. It should be your responsibility to educate yourself and see the things that are happening. And that's what I'm doing for you right here. That's what the channel is dedicated to. And if you watch the video that I made on market crashes, you will know that all economies and all markets have times of prosperity and times of hardship. And they all go through booms and busts. As we can see here, if we look at the S&P 500, we can see that it's been through years of prosperity ever since 2009. But what a good investor will be aware of is that it can't go on like this forever. It needs to be corrected, which will result in it crashing. But the key thing to mention here is that is completely normal. As we can see here with the S&P 500, which if you don't know what it is simply just a collection of the top 500 companies in the US. Which is also known as an index fund, similar to the FTSE 100, which is just the top 100 companies here in the UK. And as we can see from this chart, it's been on a constant uptrend ever since 2009, just after the global crisis of 2008. And if we study this chart here, we can see that there was another crisis in the year of 2000, just 8 years or so before we had the last one. And as we can see, it recovered. And that is the simplest lesson about markets, and especially index funds like the S&P 500. Booms and crashes are perfectly normal. They're just simply very important parts of the global economic machine and markets. So I know you may be thinking, Aaron, if they're completely normal, then why are people scared about it? Well, first of all, even though what I just said is so simple, I can tell you that 80% of the public are not even aware of it, and 95% of the public don't know how to act or behave in a crash. As we've covered on the channel previously, us humans are emotional creatures. This is what blinds us from thinking logically and rationally in times of crisis. When booms happen, people think that they're going to continue forever. And when crashes happen, people think we will never get out of it and it's the end of the world. And that's the key thing here. When markets crash, you can either be one of two people. Either you can be the person who is a victim and is absolutely destroyed by the crash, or you can be a winner and profit from the crash. What I'm going to be doing is creating a 2-part series on this, on how normal people like you and me can profit from something like this, and how to keep your head above water in times of crisis. So if you are interested in that, make sure you subscribe and I'll keep you posted on that. But before we even learn about how we can profit from this coronavirus outbreak, we need to break down some key economic concepts first, and that's what I'm going to cover in this video. Now, one thing that you may not be aware of or just simply not understand is that during this coronavirus outbreak,